So good morning, everyone. Thank you again for taking the time to join this exciting event. My name is Giulia Conforto. I'm a researcher at Inc. And in CoolLIFE, I lead the research on financing schemes and the capacity building. Rosa. Thank you. So there are a few animations through the slides, so I'll ask you to follow through with the discussion. So the reason why we decided to have a review of financing schemes for cooling is to create the first European-wide mapping of financing options, both at the European and the national level, because we couldn't find one, and this is a fastly changing landscape. So we wanted to have an understanding of what is the current financing offer, and both from private credit institutes and in terms of public support, and also to be able to facilitate access to these financing instruments for anyone who could be a beneficiary of them. So for that, we looked at the European level, at the national level, we collected some local insights, and we tried to collect both public and private instruments. Now, the methodology that we used has four steps. So first, we identified which financing instruments would be relevant through a thorough literature review and a desk research, both in English and in each local language. Then we classified, collected, and documented all instruments. In total, we had 556 between private and public schemes. Following that, we analyzed those instruments per country, per sector, per type of scheme, and we ran a correlation matrix with a number of additional relevant indicators. And finally, we complemented that with a series of expert interviews to understand what are the main drivers and barriers to financing space cooling, and what could close the investment gap. Among the main findings, here you can see the type of instruments in the first pivot table for public schemes, in the second one for the private schemes, and then the overall number of schemes divided per sector. As you can see, the percentages don't sum up to 100 when looking at the sectors, because the same schemes could cover multiple sectors. So there could be a scheme supporting building efficiency in terms of building envelope, and at the same time efficiency and increased use of renewables in heating and cooling systems, for instance. Now, what pops up is that the traditional instruments are the most common ones. So among public schemes, we see grants and subsidies, loans and soft loans, and tax incentives. Among the private schemes, green loans, green mortgages, and green bonds. We do see that cooling is not as often the direct target of public schemes as well as private instruments, as it happens with broader topics as with the building envelope and efficiency and renewables in heating and cooling. This is because of several reasons. One is that at the moment the cooling demand is still significantly lower than the heating demand, although this, as we have seen, is changing. The other thing is that cooling is not always perceived as a need as heating. So summer comfort is still not targeted as directly as if summer comfort could be endured while winter comfort has to be provided. This at least is what came out from the expert interviews. We of course it's not openly addressed in the policies that we have identified. Next slide, please. In previous literature, there were many more types of schemes that had been identified as used or suitable for greater efficiency and to supporting the energy transition in the building stock, although not all these instruments were found in the mapping that we ran, and that is because they might not be as easy to offer and to administer, and they are most suitable for an individual setup, so that a single project can set them up, but they are not found as offered in public incentives or by commercial banks. One more thing to say is that while the smaller projects can be financed through, for instance, a green loan or a commercial product that is offered by many main banks across Europe. The largest projects, such as, for instance, a district cooling network, would be the object of individual negotiations. So they are not offered in the credit institutions pages. But one advantage of such mapping is that at least we know which credit institutes already offer green products, so they already have a division or a propensity to support green finance. Looking at the number of schemes, now here we have a pivot table for the public and private schemes that is ordered by total number of schemes. So you look at the first column, and you see that the schemes with the countries with the highest number of schemes are most often countries either with the largest population and consequently the largest gross floor area and the largest energy demand in buildings for heating and cooling together, or, for instance, for the case of Belgium, those that have chosen a multiplication of the schemes at the federal level. So you have schemes that are offered by each region, rather than having a scheme that is offered at the national level and then implemented by the regions. You see that cooling is one of the sectors that have the lowest coverage. But if you look, for instance, at Italy, Spain, and Portugal in the lower part, Italy and Spain have a significant cooling demand, have significant cooling needs, but don't have a large number of schemes. Portugal, conversely, has a limited number of schemes, but if you look at the total number, all the schemes that are present in Portugal are suitable for cooling. Here we are looking at the lower part of the pivot table, and we see that, for instance, Romania, Greece, Malta, Cyprus, that have significant numbers of cooling degree days, have little or no schemes addressing cooling, and this is a very significant insight for future development. Now, coming to the expert interviews, one of the points that emerged is that it is known that few policies and incentives target directly cooling. So cooling can be part of some financing schemes, but it's mostly not the main objective. It's a secondary or just a complementary objective. Sorry, Rosa, I will have to bother you for each bullet point. Then sustainable space cooling, for instance, is not always seen as a green investment. And in this case, it is addressed through regular loans. So when providing a regular loan, credit institutions do not ask about technical aspects and profitability profile or risk profile of the project. They just ask about what is the ratio between the total investment and the amount that is asked in credit. Among the main barriers, we see lack of clear economic returns because there are different technologies, because if when comparing heating technologies, there is always a heating supply, so you're just comparing the future costs to what would be the other costs of the other technology. When talking about cooling, if the alternative is not supplying any space cooling, then it's hard to prove what would be the energy saved and what would be the emission saved by providing cooling. And this differs greatly if we're looking at commercial spaces and business areas where you have to have space cooling, because otherwise customers will not spend time there, will not use the services, will not purchase further, for instance, in shopping centers, malls, or in restaurants, or in business towers. When we compare this to residential dwellings, where you can endure a summer without any air conditioning, for instance, or any other technology supplying space cooling. But then we come back to what colleagues were mentioning about the health-related issues, especially for the most vulnerable population. Then the regulation was regarded as inadequate by the expert that we interviewed, because cooling is either not explicitly mentioned or mentioned but not with direct and specific measures or metrics. Among the main drivers, improved market conditions is likely to provide a greater access to finance for sustainable space cooling, having legislative targets, so compulsory targets that must be achieved, and increasing the efficiency of the technology available. And one last point, what is still needed to increase the supply of sustainable space cooling and the access to finance for sustainable space cooling is most of everything awareness building. So explaining to the wider public, to the policymaker, to all stakeholders that there are other technologies, that is not just air conditioning, that the need for summer comfort is growing, that the demand is growing, that we have to act upon that, not only from the technological point of view, but also from the point of view of policy and the financing instruments that are available, more transparent information about the green finance share for private institutions and investors, technical tools that we choose among different options, and in general promoting a holistic approach that includes cooling in the building standards and in the climate regulations at national and the local level. Thank you, Nora. That was